media has shifted into not reporting the news in as unbiased a manner as possible, but becoming the news and controlling the narrative by assuming the conclusion. The title of this is Rings of Power Draws Istophobic Backlash and Threats. But they don't, calling something istophobic, like that has a definition, though it seems to be changing minute by minute. But they're calling the fans istophobic, and they do this in the Mary Sue too. I mean, the Mary Sue is ridiculous, but they do this. Second point: why is there? I have to, for the YouTube algorithm, say istophobic backlash to Rings of Power. It's like you're assuming a conclusion that you haven't yet proven, and that's the modern day media, which is. It's like it's not really the media anymore. It's like everything's kind of shifted into opinion pieces by reporters who are not reporters. They're just opinion writers. So they're not. Believe it or not, at one time I realized it was probably more like 30 years ago. The media was not like this. They tried to be like, obviously you're going to have a majority of left-wing people, but even 30 years ago, they were trying to be a little bit more impartial than this, to give both sides of the story. That's what most people do. It's like, this isn't that media. This isn't like, this is just the new media. It means it's like, why don't people trust the media? Well, because it's all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so click the links to join the channel, become a member, or check out the subscribe to the various other links. So the new Hollywood manipulation model is to erase European characters from stories. And when you mention it, then they call you phobic, or in general, put crappy characters in a show. And when you laugh at the crappy characters, you're a toxic Chad who hates diversity. It's the Hollywood version of that, is to make POCs essentially deities on screen, and the people of the light just incompetent, malicious, and cruel. So yes, why wouldn't we hate that? It's beyond the culture war and the hatred. It just makes bad storytelling when you look at a cover of a movie, a comic, a book, and you see dark and fair, and you just know the protagonist and antagonist. The story is told on the cover of these shows, because they will not write a non-Euro character with any nuance. They're just purse puppies. And if you can, I was going to say, if you could prove me wrong on that, good luck finding examples of that. Which is a problem in storytelling, because we know we're not incompetent, malicious, and cruel. The thing is, we know we're awesome. We know how awesome we are. So we don't want to see ourselves degraded on screen with a purse puppy who always has to one-up us. That's like, that you can't make that as the foundation of your story, because it's so out of this world of our own personal experience. Because, I mean, we know we're cool. We know we're awesome. To see us as like totally, literally an Englishman wrote the story. And I mean, you get where I'm going with that. It's like, the only suspension of disbelief only goes so far. So it's crazy, because before social media, we couldn't talk about this. But now we can give these Hollywood vermin some feedback, and they definitely don't like it when the cattle talk back to their betters. That's how they consider themselves. Hollywood endlessly lectures us from their mansions in gated communities. They wanted the communication to be a monologue from teacher to student. I mean, that's how they think of us. If you watch their award shows, yeah, applaud Roman Polanski and Weinstein a little bit harder, why don't you, or Woody Allen. But we're talking about the propaganda amongst ourselves, and we're laughing at this cultural Marxism from the people who supported Weinstein for decades and are on Epstein's Island's vacation tours. How dare the peasants criticize our propaganda? They make crap. It's crap. Then they attack the customers. These aren't fans. People are fans of the original story. This isn't Tolkien. I mean, this is something else. You should have called it something else. You shouldn't have called it Rings of Power. It's like, just write a fantasy story. It doesn't have anything. You didn't have to spend $250 million to pay for the rights to Lord of the Rings. So they're trying to use social pressure to manipulate the narrative, where if you don't support erasing European characters, then you're phobic. Racist is not a real organic term. It's critical theory, Frankfurt School, cultural Marxist manipulation. It's been Bolsheviks the whole time. It's how the globalists control the NPCs. Yes, the cultural Marxism, it's been going on since 1918. They're Bolsheviks. They hate you. This is all part of their humiliation ritual. The thing is, when you start thinking it in those terms, Bolsheviks, humiliation ritual, and you start to look into critical theory, it all kind of fits in place, where you see like, oh, they're doing this really weird stuff. It feels like they're trying to degrade, belittle, and humiliate. Yeah, it's the humiliation ritual they take part in. The funny thing is, they're selling NPCs propaganda. I mean, people pay these streaming companies for daily doses of brainwashing. It's not like, I mean, it's not like the old days of TV where you paid for it by watching advertising, which is, I don't know, probably a little bit more palatable to people. And then they saw that people could, TiVo the screen record the stuff and then fast forward it, so they had to go to a streaming model. Then if they discuss it, we discuss it and we find flaws with this crap, and the stuff is full of flaws, though you're istophobic. It's like, you feel like you're just using non-Euro characters as shields to hide crappy stories behind. Oh, that's kind of exactly what they're doing. But what if we want to see the characters as they were intended by the original, the guy who created this story? What if we don't want cultural Marxist propaganda? This is a bunch of nonsense. I guess we have to reject Hollywood and make our own entertainment. No, we're not going to compete with Hollywood. Even a small film is like... a small film, like minimum is like $10 million. I mean, to have anything that looks like a movie, you're not going to compete. And it's not even the money, because it's like, yeah, you can get the money together, but it's the distribution network. It's kind of this concept that globalists do. It's the concept of detrimental reliance, which is a legal term in contracts, but it's the philosophy of it, where social media companies do it. They invite everyone on and they say, yeah, this is the place to talk, and then they start censoring right of center views. Like, oh, so we relied on this social media platform instead of building our own or going somewhere else, supporting something else. We relied on it to our detriment. That's what I'm using. It's not I'm using the term loosely, but you get the concept, which is great that there are these concepts. Like they manipulate us, so it's nice to have the nomenclature of how they manipulate us, which is, it's fascinating just to do a little study into Bolshevism. It's or Saul Alinsky's whatever that book, Rules for Radicals, I think. Anyway, but that's fine, because Hollywood, is a bunch of Moloch worshipping, people who have seen kids. So, we don't have to compete in that industry. We're going to have to do something else. I don't know, maybe animation or something. Oh, dear God. So, I like, what's the subtitle? What does the cock look like? Please help me. My kids have been kidnapped. Arc light my position now. Fire on my... Bomb my position. Send in the C-130 and just run the guns dry. There's a guy standing off stage, either with a suitcase of money or a Beretta or something. We're gonna have to reject this kind of Hollywood. It's like this. Is this what Pravda looks like? Because this looks suspiciously like, what a bunch of pussies. I feel bad for you guys. I mean, hey, come in for a photo shoot. Is there money behind it? Yeah, fine. There's a couple bucks for you. So stories have to make sense. If you have an Afro dwarf, and don't get me wrong, the chick who played the part in the role, she looks stupid in the production stills, but she actually did a great job. I mean, assuming like if you accept the role as it is, then she did a fine job in it. But you got this Euro dwarf who's hooked up with her. So I don't know if the word dwarf triggers the algorithm. How does that work? Their kids are going to look like her. So essentially, you're genociding his lineage. Why would I want to see Euro dwarf genocide? Afro dwarves are great, but they belong in a Terry Pratchett universe because they are there from the start. And I'm not dwarves because they're underground, of course, which should be obvious to a child. Melanin protects you from ionizing radiation. But you have them in the universe as humans or elves or whatever. But they all obviously they have to be from. Yes, they can be elves, but they have to be from a different tribe. They have to be from the whatever is the simile to or analogy to Africa is in the fantasy universe. Terry Pratchett did it. Discworld was a. There were areas that were Asia, there were areas that were Africa, and then he did a story that was set in Australia that was so freaking funny. I forget what that was called. It's got a kangaroo on the cover. Rince. I've read all that guy's books, and he passed it like 53 from Alzheimer's. It sucks so bad. So what they're doing with all these stories is they're doing way too much. They're just throwing every little cultural Marxist talking point into these stories because they're in their own echo chamber too. They say the right wing, you guys are in an echo chamber. Isn't it more likely that if we're not on board the mainstream propaganda that we've broken out of the echo chamber? Like you guys are lockstep in agreement with Amazon and CNN and MSNBC. You're in lockstep agreement with the biggest companies on earth. We're in disagreement with them. And, you look at Antifa and BLM, like, we're the rebels, we're raging. You go, but you agree with Twitter and Facebook and CNN, and MSNBC, and every corporation that is funding this, and Amazon and Netflix and Cartoon Network. You guys are all in agreement. Oh, are we not raging against the machine? Yeah, you're not raging against the machine. I mean, there's got to be some kids in Antifa go, oh, we were brainwashed the whole time. I don't want to go down that path. Don't get me started. So no. Why would, if they're underground, they're in a cave, right? That's the dwarves. Why would they have dark skin? It's fantasy. Okay, then why not make her a lizard person? Why not make her like look like a crocodile? Why don't you reach into the sky, pull down the sun, and throw it at someone? Because a willing suspension of disbelief doesn't go that far. Okay, but we know what skin is for. Protect you from radiation. It's like children learn this kind of stuff. To have them underground is just the dumbest thing on earth. I mean, you had humans, elves, and other above ground characters that you could have picked from, and it's like, no, we're gonna put her in a cave. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, people know about fish, cave fish. They're all like albino white because they don't need any pigmentation. Anyway, so yes, of course they have the Euro and Afro mixed up. I mean, we get it. Globalism is what you're pushing, at least globalism for us, but it's not really for the. It's funny, the ones who are pushing it, it's almost as, well, I guess they are hypocrites because they're pushing it for us, but not for them. They have high in-group preferences. It's really makes you think. So I don't know if they showed the kids in that scene at the end or if they kept their heads covered. They were wearing these decorative helmets or something because the kids wouldn't look like him. So you got Euro dwarficide. And why is it Euro dwarf mixing? Why don't you have a Chinese one? There are billions of them. It's the biggest market in the world. Why doesn't Hollywood represent them and mix them with the Afro hobbits? It only goes in one direction. Which if your almonds aren't activated by now, you've been deeply asleep. Even for American representation, there are twice as many Mexicans as are Africans. Why aren't they, the front face of the show? Why does Latin American representation get completely ignored in Hollywood? Hollywood overrepresents Africans, but underrepresents East Asians, Latins, Arabs. To Hollywood, diversity means one thing. I wonder if there's a deeper meaning behind all this. Anyway, save these hostages. Poor guys. You're all welcome here. Yeah, but I mean, you can't invite someone to something that's not yours. I mean, yes, they sold the rights to the show, but the show exists whether you sell the rights or not. The show, I mean, the story is, the first 4 books or all the books. It's like they're already written. You can't edit them. So you can't invite, say like, oh, this is the new Hollywood interpretation where they're non-Europeans in a European story where you're erasing the Europeans from their own mythology and culture. What do you call that? Oh, yeah. It's weird. Everything they say that we are, they project against us. It's like it would have been so easy and cheap just to write your own fantasy story, make it, Terry Pratchett type of story. It would have been just the easiest thing in the world. You would have saved $250 million, and people would have respected it a little bit more. But no, they had to subvert and corrupt, just like the. Anyway, it's like, comment, subscribe, check me out on Subscribestar, Odyssey, Bit Chute, Gab, Telegram, and there's a bunch of other sites, but I don't have time to post on these sites. I'm gonna have to figure out an algorithmic bot or something. And I will see you guys on next episode.